was like, no, that is horrible advice. But I'm putting this in, truer words have never been spoken. But I think that sometimes people go too hardcore with this. Complete malarkey, to put it mildly. Sup peoples, and welcome back to another video. Today I thought we would try something a little bit different. I have heard a lot of writing advice over the years, primarily because I started this channel after binge watching an absurd amount of writing tips YouTube videos. One of the things that I learned, and sort of had to learn from living in that world for a little while, was that sometimes people's advice just sucks. It does sometimes. And I think that everything that someone says on the internet, anybody says anything, it should all be taken with a grain of salt. Everybody is different. All of that being said, I wanted to tier rank some advice from the internet. So I went through and I asked my subscribers over on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at the handle here if you want to be able to partake in that sort of thing. And I also just went on Reddit and looked at a bunch of writing advice, and here it is for the tier ranking. I'm just sort of going to dive right into this. The rankings are as follows. Truer words have never been spoken is the top tier. That's advice I think that applies to everybody. This works for me, but maybe not for you. That's advice that's great for me, but might not work for you. Not personally. This is advice that just, it doesn't match my style. Maybe it'd work for you, not my personal thing. Then we have what are they on about, which is advice that, you know what, no shade if it works for you. That's great, happy for you, but to me, it makes absolutely no sense. And then finally we have excuse me, but what? Which is advice that I don't think will work for anybody and the internet should throw away. First, using fancy words will make your writing sound more credible. No. Okay, we're starting right out of the gates with one that I just think, excuse me, but yeah, is that too harsh? No, I'm sticking it there. Excuse me, but what? Like seriously. I think you should use fancy words if that fits your style. I think that fancy words work in some scenarios, but I think that forcing yourself to use fancy words, thinking that's the only way to make your writing sound like you're a real writer, is complete malarkey, to put it mildly. That will just make you sound pretentious and fake. So no, don't do that. I came out of the gates very, very hardcore there. Next, only write what you know. Ooh, that's hard. I'm not gonna say excuse me, but what, because this has some truth to it, but I'm gonna put that in what are they on about. Because seriously, this has always confused me. I write all sorts of stories about all sorts of characters, and I'm sorry, I've never personally fought a cyborg. Does that mean I shouldn't be writing my cyberpunk comic? I've also never summoned fire into my hands, so can I not write fantasy? You could argue that nobody has ever done any of those things. But to that I would say, do you think that every author has worked every profession they've written a character in? Sure, catering things to your strong suits can help you out. Like let's say you used to work in marketing and you decide to write a contemporary novel and it doesn't really matter what job your character has, maybe putting them in marketing would be smart because you know about it, so you'll sound knowledgeable when you write about it. But don't feel like you can only write about characters in marketing. You know, that doesn't really make any sense. That's just limiting you. You should look into the things that you're writing about and learn about them, but you don't have to have personally lived them. You know, that's the whole thing of being a writer. So next, write for yourself. But I'm putting this in, truer words have never been spoken. I actually found this advice multiple places when I was looking for advice to rank in this video. Some people put it in the worst advice. Some people put it in the best advice. I personally think that yes, you should write for yourself. Anything that I'm gonna write that I wrote for someone else, and by that I don't mean like I wrote this fanfic for you as a gift, or I wrote this thing for you as a gift, or whatever, that's sweet, that's nice. I'm talking about the place that I saw it as, no, you shouldn't do this, was talking about how if you write for yourself, then you're not gonna sell that book. You're not selling it to you. You should write what people will buy. And it was like, no, that is horrible advice. If I'm just writing books so that people buy them, maybe I'll be a more successful author, but the chances are I won't. People can tell if you don't care about your book, if you're just churning out mass-producible nonsense. Why would anybody pick my book over the millions of books that are already out there on whatever topic or in whatever genre? What makes you unique is actually the selling point of your book, if you ask me. Granted, I have yet to sell a book because I have yet to finish writing one, but I do think that this doesn't make sense, this whole write for people to buy. To me, writing is how I creatively express myself. It's like a part of who I am. It is in my soul. And that sounds so cheesy, but it's just true to me, you know? Like, so I can't imagine writing not for myself. I wouldn't love writing then. Why am I being a writer? There's so many better careers to follow if you're just in it for the money. I'm only trying to be a writer because I'm writing for myself. I'm doing that for me. I totally think that you should write for yourself. You need to describe everything in detail. What are they on about? You need to describe everything in detail doesn't make sense. If you describe everything in intense detail, your book is just gonna be a slog. I think you should describe things in detail that deserve to be described in detail. And I think that you should describe things so that people know what your world looks like and it has flavor, but I don't think you need to describe everything. If I described every time the school bus came around the corner in my romance novel in a vivid detail, people would get really sick of that school bus really quick. I just need to describe it maybe once or twice. Or like tiny details here and there that become one bigger picture over the course of the novel. So like maybe it comes around the corner, I say that it's a battered yellow school bus. And then maybe 3 chapters later, I mention that this one seat is sort of sticky. You know, like it's little details that you're sprinkling in that slowly paint a picture of this school bus in your mind, rather than just info dumping every time you see it. Next, don't read books from the genre you want to write in because they'll influence you too much. I was gonna say maybe that's a what are they on about, but actually that's just an excuse me, but what? Like seriously, what? How am I supposed to know if I want to write in that genre if I don't read any of it? Obviously don't copy books, but I think that everybody's writing is made up of the things that they've absorbed and they've enjoyed. Don't cut out a whole genre. Think of all the things you're not learning. So I think that's bad advice. I think you should actually read books in the genre that you're going to write because you probably enjoy them, right? That's probably why you want to write in that genre. That leads perfectly into one of this bit of advice. Read. And I'm just going to put that in truer words that have never been spoken. Because of the last thing I said. Reading is how we learn about writing. I've always loved books. I was one of those kids that could sit down and read a 500-page book in a day. That is how I've become a writer, by reading. If you want reading content, I actually have a Patreon now, and that's where I post my like reading wrap-ups, reading vlogs, all of that kind of stuff. So you should definitely check that out. I will put the link in the description. Anyway, next. Don't use a long word when a short one can get the job done. Ooh, that's hard. I think that's a personal preference thing. I'm gonna put that in not personally. Do I use a bunch of long words? No. But I think that if you like using long words and they fit your style, they were made for a reason. Don't use them constantly. Don't feel like you need to use fancy words because using fancy words will not make your writing sound more credible. But if you want to use them and you think that they work and they don't make you sound like haughty and pretentious, go for it. Use them. That's what they're there for. Okay, you need to plot your book first. I'm gonna put this in not personally. This is another one that splits writers down the middle because there's pantsers, there's plotters, there's a million things in between. I tend to fall in the middle. Now, if you don't know what a pantser and a plotter are, basically, a pantser is someone who flies by the seat of their pants and a plotter is someone who plots the whole thing. And a lot of plotters assume you need a plot to have outlined your whole book. I don't think you do. I've written a lot of things by just sitting down and writing. And while I do like to work with an outline that tells me where it's starting, where it's ending, I often like to fill in the middle just by myself and seeing where it goes. And so I think that whether or not you plot your book is totally personal preference, and that if anybody is telling you you need to, you should probably ignore that person's advice. Or at least about that thing, because like I said, that is personal preference. That is how you write. Just do your thing. Do what works for you. If you could sit down and write a whole book without planning it, that's amazing, and you should just do it. If you need to sit down and plan it before you write it, that's also amazing because you have the ability to figure it all out ahead of time and plan it. Both are cool. There's not a right way and a wrong way. Just do the way that works for you. Next, don't be impatient. Truer words have never been spoken, and I have been struggling with this for the last several years. It's the source of most of my writer's block, is I'm just like, why isn't it done yet? And I just have to accept that it's gonna take time. I've officially passed the point where I will never be a teen author, and that sort of bums me out. But honestly, I'd rather publish a good book in my 20s or 30s than have published a rushed and bad book in my teens. Okay, show, don't tell. Because this is another one. I need to do a whole video on show, don't tell. I'm gonna put this in. This works for me, but maybe not you. I personally do prefer to show versus tell. But I think that sometimes people go too hardcore with this, where they feel like they can't tell anything. They only can show. And that's just not gonna work. Every story tells a little bit, so long as it's not crazy. you're probably good. While show don't tell is usually good advice, it's only good advice in moderation. If you literally never tell anything and you feel like you're not allowed to, that's probably going to hinder your book more than help it. Next, schedule your writing. Not personally. This might work for some people, and it used to work for me, but it doesn't anymore. I've found that scheduling it makes me stressed out about it. So in that same way, make writing a habit. I'm gonna put that in this works for me, but maybe not you. I think scheduling your writing and making your writing a habit are two different things. Scheduling your writing is like every day at 5, I write till 6. And that used to work for me, but it doesn't anymore. But making writing a habit, I do think works, because if you make it a habit, it's easier for you to fall into it. Maybe that's not as strict or as rigid as a schedule, but having like a loose habit is what I'm aiming for now. Next, write every day. I'm gonna have a hot take and put that in what are they on about. It's not so bad it's in excuse me but what, but it is in what are they on about. Because if you can write every day, that's great. I find it really burns me out. And feeling like I have to write every day just stresses me out and burns me out more. You know what? I'm not gonna put in what are they on about. I'm gonna put it in not personally. Because it probably does work for some people. It's probably the motivation some people need. I just think that forcing it on everybody is bad because it doesn't work for everybody. And if you don't write every day, you are still a writer. Only do it if it works for you, and you are not any less of a writer if it doesn't. Eliminate adverbs. Excuse me, but what? Adverbs exist for a reason. Why would you eliminate them? No. Don't overuse them, but that goes with everything. That's like saying eliminate, I don't know, adjectives. You'd be missing so much. So much detail, so much expression. Use 20-minute writing sprints. This was one of the tips that I got on my Instagram when I asked for writing advice to rank. I honestly can't say where to put this. I've never tried it. Let me know in the comments if I should do a video where I try 20-minute writing sprints. Use synonyms to avoid repetitive words. Yes. But not too much. So I'm gonna put this in this works for me, but maybe not you. Because it's not truer words have never been spoken, because there's a bit of nuance to it. You should use synonyms to avoid repetitive words, the same way that you don't want to say Dave 5 times in one paragraph. But you also don't want it to become so obvious that you're using all the synonyms in the thesaurus. So it's about that balance. Don't take writing advice from the internet, just write. I'm out of business then. Okay, bye guys, I'm sorry, goodbye. It was nice knowing you, but clearly you should stop following me. Actually, no, you should follow me, because I'm gonna put this in, this works for me, but maybe not you. Because I actually have some notes on this. I do think you should just write at the end of the day. I had a period of time where I was obsessed with writing tips in Instagrams and YouTubes, and I actually found it hindered me. At first it really helped because I was learning, but then I started to feel like I had to do it the way they were saying, and I had to follow all the rules, and I had to do this, and it actually got in my head and made me like second guess myself too much. What I would now suggest is you can definitely learn from the internet and from other amazing writers, but don't feel like you have to do it their way if that doesn't work for you. That's always the message behind like so many of these tips that I'm saying. And that's sort of the message behind my channel. I always make sure to say that. It is not my way or the highway. Let's not force anybody to do anything, you know? I think that there's definitely truth to this, and I've stopped watching tips videos personally. For the most part, once in a while I will if I'm like struggling with something. So long as you can strike a balance where you're learning, but you're not hindering your own personal style in favor of theirs, then I think you're good. Next, break the rules. I got this one on Instagram too. I don't totally know what they mean by it. It's so vague. I'm gonna put it in this works for me, but maybe not you. Because what I think they mean is that you should, sort of like I said about the last one, you should do it your way. I recently read the second book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, Good Girl, Bad Blood. 5-star book. Adored it. And one of the things I liked was that at the end, a really big moment happened, and it sort of shattered the main character's world. The book was written weirdly. There were too many spaces in between certain sentences. The sentences were structured weird. Reading it made me feel like, and something was off. It helped me get into the character's mindset more and made the ending more impactful. So if that's what they mean by break the rules, like don't be afraid to mess around with things, then yeah, actually, truer words have never been spoken. Be creative. Do your thing. Let the characters write themselves. But I actually found this on a list of bad advice, and this is how I do my characters. So I think I'm gonna put this in this works for me, but maybe not for you. When I do sit down, it's one of the hardest things I've actually had to describe, because people ask me like, how do you come up with the character? How do you come up with the plot? Can't tell you that because I don't know. I do sort of just sit down and my characters write themselves. A good writer shouldn't need to edit. Excuse me, but what? What? No. I think every writer needs to edit. I think the best writers still need to edit. I'm not even going to give that one any real time because it's just nonsense. Of course you need to edit. Everybody needs to edit. I mean, if you don't, that's cool, but like, never feel like a bad writer because you need to edit. I think pretty much everybody does. Write like the writers that people think are good. No. No. Excuse me, but what? That feels like when people didn't like write for yourself and they were like, write for the money, write what people want to read. No, definitely don't write like other writers just because people think they're good. Write like yourself. Learn from writers that you admire, but learn from them because you want to learn from them, not because people are telling you to. Writing is subjective. It's creativity. I know that it's also a business. You want to be a writer. You want to be an author. But at the end of the day, it is a creative medium. I bet you people have looked at those beautiful abstract paintings, and just because it's in a gallery now, people respect it. But I bet you if you showed it to them and were like, look what I made, they'd all just be like, you don't know what you're doing. And now look at it, it's hanging in a gallery, it's famous. Write like you write. The word said is overused. What are they on about? I don't think you should say it in every sentence, but I do think that it's a classic for a reason. If every time you feel like you have to do shouted or exclaimed or whispered, it's gonna make those things lose meaning. You can totally use the word said. Just keep writing. Doesn't matter if it's good, you can edit it later. I think the idea behind it is so true, but I'm actually gonna put this in not personally. I've found that if I'm unhappy with my writing, what works for me is to go back, figure out why I'm unhappy with it, and fix it. This actually happened in Project Eros recently, and I have vlogs of me writing that novel. I'll link them above. Basically what happened was I was working on draft 4, and I realized that I didn't like how the plot was fitting together, and I could have just kept writing it, finished it, and then edited it later. But I felt like that would create more work for myself, and also I was unhappy with it, so I never wanted to write it. So what I did instead was I stopped, I went back, I fixed, and restructured it, and now I'm gonna start draft 5. Maybe that's not the best method, but I've found personally that if I keep writing even when I'm not happy with what I'm writing, I just write worse stuff because it's like I can tell, like I lose my confidence. Now this, on the other hand, is like another version of that, and that goes, in truer words have never been spoken. Your first draft is gonna suck, and that's okay. You gotta write it anyway. Look, it rhymes, so you know it's true. With Project Eros, every time that it didn't work, keep a lot of what had happened and just fix the things that hadn't worked. My first draft was like 19 chapters, I'm pretty sure. Didn't work out, and I did end up having to restart, but I still learned so much from that first draft. At the end of the day, the only way to get the words on the page is to write them. And the only way for them to be good words is if you keep doing it until they are. And that means you have to do a lot of drafts. And that means it's gonna suck a lot of the time. And you just have to know that is everybody's process. It's not a you problem. It's not even a problem. It's just how writing works. I think that's all of them. Yeah, because you can see this row down here, but I accidentally realized I uploaded the things I was going to be tier ranking twice. But that is my tier ranking of some of the advice I found on the internet. Let me know in the comments the best bit of advice you've heard, whether that's on the internet or elsewhere, and the worst. I would love to know. If you'd like me to do another one of these videos with more advice or other things, tier ranking other stuff in the writer world, let me know. They're pretty fun to do, it turns out. They're also a lot easier because I don't have to script the whole thing. I can just sort of come up with it on the fly, which is what I needed for this week because I was sick for 2 weeks and I just didn't film. Because you didn't need to see me like that. I mean, if you want to see me like that, it'll be over on my Patreon in a vlog. You know, you gotta pay to see me sniffly and dejected. So yeah. If you're interested in my Patreon, I know I've mentioned it many times, but I'm really trying to get it off the ground. That will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. I try to really avoid the what are they on abouts and the excuse me but what's on this channel. And I will see you on the next page. Till then.